He changed it so there could only be one drop box per county.
Oh, heavens.
Hi, I'm Barbara Lewis, president of the League of Women Voters of Santa Cruz County, and I'd like to welcome you to what promises to be an interesting and valuable program. On behalf of the sponsoring groups, the League of Women Voters, and the American Association of University Women, our co-sponsor. And I have had the pleasure of meeting our county clerk for elections, Tricia Weber, before, participating in the Women in Leadership for Diverse Representation group. We were in a breakout session and I got to talk to her. And I told her, she was the speaker that I found the most valuable of all of the people I've heard. So everybody has some anxiety or reluctance for speaking, but I think the information she will provide about the coming March election and about elections will be valuable. So I hope you all are glad you came and are rewarded. So without further ado, here is our County Clerk of Elections, Tricia Weber.
Thank you. So is this going to cause a problem if I have both of them going, or should I just project very, very loud? I should, okay. All right, well, I feel like doubly mic'd, right? So I got this one, and I have a voice where I was taught to project from the diaphragm. So we'll see. If you can hear me, I'll go back to this one. Hi, thank you very much for having me here today. As Barbara said, my name is Tricia Weber. I'm the Santa Cruz County Clerk, Registrar of Voters. I have worked for the Elections Department since 1997. I was actually trained by Evelyn, which ratcheted my anxiety level when I walked in here, because those of you who may know me well would know that this is the scariest moment in life for me, is to be standing here in front of people talking. And once I get going, I guess I do it okay, but I'll tell you, the whole ride up here, I was sick to my stomach. The whole ride home, I'm going to be sick to my stomach. And it's not because you aren't wonderful people. I know many of you. I've seen many of your faces. It's just because it's so scary. And then seeing Evelyn here, I'm like, oh. I don't want to disappoint her. And then I get told, oh, I've got to wear a microphone. And I'm like, oh. But anyway, I'm hoping that over the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to be able to learn a little bit more about elections and answer some questions. Because one thing I learned in my time of being in elections, again since 1997, is you can never do an election the same way twice. And so we're constantly adapting, whether that's due to new laws that are being passed or the difference between a primary and a general, a gubernatorial for state versus a presidential, a special election. They're called special for a reason, because they are very special and have their own rules. You know, we did a recall in 21. You know, every single election we do is different. Every single election, we're retraining ourselves. And every single election, we're having to retrain our voters. Because, you know, we eat, sleep, drink, breathe it. You all come and cut the polls whenever there's an election. So you're looking at us going, this seems different. And we're like, well, it's not really different. We did it this way last time, sort of. And so it's just, trying to get everything going. So March 5th is the presidential primary election. What makes this one so special or different is this is the only election that happens in California now that party is important. Because in a presidential primary, the parties are choosing who their nominees are going to be running off in the November general election. Some parties allow other parties to be, or allow voters who are not with a party to vote for their nominees, and other parties do not. And the reason why I start this off this way is because on the ballot, and I brought a couple samples to show you, on the ballot, people are going to see a partied primary. They're going to see a voter-nominated primary, and they're going to see a nonpartisan primary, all on the exact same ballot. And it's going to cause massive confusion. Does for us too. Because that right after the presidential contest is the Senate contest. The U.S. Senate contest has 20 some odd names listed, with all different parties listed, and anybody can vote for whomever they want in that contest. Doesn't matter what your party affiliation is, doesn't matter what the candidate's party affiliation is, but you're going to be, that's where the first part of the confusion is going to be, right? I'm going to see a list here of only a party, and then I'm going to see a list here of everybody, something, and then all of a sudden you're going to see a contest which has no party on there, such as supervisor if you're in the 1st, 2nd, or 5th district. So there's 3 different types of primaries that are occurring on a single ballot. If that does not cause questions, I want to hire those people, because they will be my new outreach team to talk to everyone else. So I might as well just show you the ballot. Another thing about I'm gonna put this down. Another thing about a presidential primary that's different is it's all color coded. And I know these are not the brightest ones because I just ran them off on my copy machine, which doesn't make it as pretty. They say void. But I'm going to try to line them up so you can see that each party is its own color. And you can, perfect. Look, we're Vanna. So you can see we've got kind of a pink and kind of a gray and kind of a brown and kind of a peach, and this one's white and this one's green and this one's blue. Now, each party is assigned their own color. However, we don't want to give preferential treatment, we'll say, to a party. Like, for example, Democrats are usually associated with the color blue. Republicans are usually associated with the color red. There's a party called the Green Party. One would think that they're associated with green. No. I don't even know where we are. The Republicans are kind of this brown color. The Democrats are green. And, I'm missing the Green Party. They're yellow. I wonder where I hid them. Anyway, the Green Party is yellow. They've got to be here somewhere. But anyway, the very top? Oh, you're right. See? Yellow. So that's the first thing we have to tell people. They're like, well, how come mine is this color? It should be this color. Well, no. This is the color that's been assigned to you. We don't assign them on the local level. It's signed by the Secretary of State's office. They must go through some algorithm or whatever to choose. I don't know. But the entire state will use the same color system for their ballots. So if you are a voter over in Santa Clara County, you're going to see the same coloring ballots that I'm showing you today. So as you can see, there's 8 different ballots here. This is for a single precinct, okay? Because in addition to each of the 6 qualified parties, there are the Democratic Party, there's what are known as no party preference voters. Those are people who have said that they're not affiliating themselves with a political party. I will tell you I'm one of those. And the no party preference voters are actually this ballot here because there's no party, right? So there's no presidential nominee to vote for. So the no party preference people could just get the ballot with no president on there, or they can request a crossover without changing their party affiliation. The Democratic Party, the American Independent Party, and the Libertarian Party allow for people such as myself to cross over and vote for their candidates without changing their party. So then we have to make a crossover ballot for the party if they're crossing over. So this is a representation of the crossover moving to the Democrats, because you can vote for the Democratic president nominees, but you can't vote for Democratic Central Committee because, you're not really a Democrat if you're a no party preference crossover. And it's the same with the American Independents, and it's also the same with the Libertarians, that we make a different ballot for them as well. And then, so here's ballots. I'll pause and ask if there's any questions specifically about the ballots. Yes,
How many do I get?
1. You are going to be sent the ballot. You can go ahead and pass these out if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
People can look at them. They're voided. You will be sent the ballot that is correlated to how you are registered. And then the no party preference voters have received notification that what they can cross over and how to go about asking for a crossover. And we will send, for people who've responded, we will send them their ballot that they have requested. And then we have included instructions, actually for the no party preference voters, it's written right on their ballot that says, oh, hey, you're not seeing president, and it doesn't say it this way, but it just basically says you're not seeing president because you're not registered with an affiliated party, nor have you requested a crossover. So here's what you can do. And then it gives all the ways, and we can send replacement ballots. I also know that this time we're going to get phone calls where people are going to open it up and go, hello, this is not what I am. And we're going to tell them what they need to do to get that done. We are committed to get each voter the ballot that they want up to and including election day. There are ways for us to do it. The woman in the purple is first, then her friend next to her.
So I got a notice in the mail that we were going to be getting mailings on February 5th. Are we going to be getting ballots? And will I get, because I'm a registered Democrat, am I going to get a registered Democrat ballot?
So,
And am I going to, is that a mail-in? Are we doing a mail-in too or no?
okay, well, you have lots of questions. Okay, so one of them I'm going to answer now, and then the rest of them I believe I will answer in a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
So February 5th is the day that vote-by-mail ballots are sent.
Yes.
You will receive the ballot in the mail of which you are registered for, or if you are no party preference have requested. So if you are registered as a Democrat, you will receive a Democrat. Okay?
Did you say there's going to be a separate Senate election, or will the Senate choices be on this ballot?
The Senate choices are on the ballot. What I'm saying is on the ballot, there's 3 different types of primaries that are occurring. Okay?
Now you know why I have gray hair.
It's also
Any more complicated?
It's also why I visit the hairdresser once a month.
I have a question about switching parties. Like, is it past the point when people could switch if they wanted to, or?
It is not past the time of re-registering with a different party. If you re-register prior to February. Oh, it's in my backpack. One of the things about working in the elections department is we don't work by calendar dates. We actually work what's known as E- or E+ dates, E being election day, and then you either are minus something or you're plus something. And the last day to register to vote, which would be what you would do if you were changing your party, and still receive things in the mail, is E- 15, which correlates to February 19th. So the last day to re-register to change your party or to re-register or register for the first time and be able to receive your ballot and information in the mail would be February 19th. You can still change your registration after that date, but you must do it in person. Okay?
So what you're telling me is this is a pre-voter IQ test to see if you're qualified to vote at all. That's what I gathered out of it.
I'll let you interpret it your own way. But yes, I mean, just like I said, the ballot is very, very confusing. Yes?
If you're registered as non-affiliated with any party, is the only thing for the primary that you won't be voting on is presidential candidate unless you request otherwise? And what about in the fall? Is it you have?
So the general election. To answer your question, that is correct. If you are registered no party preference, meaning you're not affiliated with a qualified party, and you do not request or take action to obtain one with a presidential contest on it, you will be able to vote for everything else. So that's the U.S. Senate, that's Assembly, that's Congress, that's State Senate, that's anything local. The only time, again, party matters is a presidential primary. So in a general election, everybody will receive the same ballot, where it will list all of the different political parties with their nominees for the president and vice president, and you are able to vote for anyone who you want, regardless of your party affiliation or non-affiliation or their party affiliation.
Thank you.
Okay. So I know that walked around this so you could take a look at it. This column here, which I very nicely wrote void through, this is the Senate contest. I apologize already that it's smaller. I wanted it, I'll rephrase that. I needed it. I always tell my daughter, you can want something and you can need something. You need to make sure, it's very important you determine which is a need and which is a want. I needed it to appear on one column. The reason I needed it to do that is because if it's split into multiple columns, that would cause even more confusion, even for me. Because it's like, vote for one, but only vote for one person in the next 3 columns, right? And that would cause overvotes. Overvotes are just that. You voted for more choices than what was available, and that means we would not be able to count anything on that. So I needed it to be in one column. And the only way I could get it to be on one column with all of the required instructions that we have to put on there was to make the spacing a little smaller. So I'm sorry, but I think in the long run, we're going to be much happier with it looking this direction. And then, of course, I had to put in extra instructions because there's 2 Senate races, U.S. Senate races. Yeah, see? Look. Yeah. Fun, huh? The first one is for the full term, which would be starting in January of 2025, which is when Dianne Feinstein's, her seat was up for election. That's when the new one would be. But then because Senator Feinstein passed away and there was an appointment made, we have to go to election to elect the person to fulfill the rest of her term. Because the person appointed only fills it until there's an election. So then we have another U.S. Senate. So we have the full term for the new 6-year term starting January 25, and we have the short term, which this is always my favorite. It's actually only for a month because this has to run off in November. The top 2 vote getters go and run off in November, which means that that person is technically not elected to fill that short-term seat until we certify the election, which is the first week of December, which means they only are in office truly elected from December, whatever date we certify, to January 3rd, which is when the new term starts over.
So for that election, if someone received 50% plus 1, they don't get...
No, that's cute. Yes. Nope, that's for the nonpartisan ones, is 50% plus 1. Nope. For full term, partial term, Congress, state Senate, and assembly, those are under our top 2 rules, which means the top 2 vote getters run off in November. Even if there's 2 people, the same 2 people run off in November. And then we move to nonpartisan, which is the 50% plus 1. Yep.
How many names are on the partial term Senate?
Partial? 1, 2, 3.
You said there's like 27 or something.
There's only 7.
7 on the partial, right?
Yeah, just 7. Yep. All right. So now that we've kind of talked about what the ballot looks like and how it's determined what type of ballot you're going to get and what you can do if you want a different ballot, we're now going to talk about how the voting model is in Santa Cruz. So Santa Cruz transitioned starting in 1920. Sorry. And I was there for all of that. No. Santa Cruz transitioned starting in 2020 into what's known as the vote center model. We were previously in what's known as the polling place model. So in a polling place model, you open for voting on a single day, election day, at a polling location that I assign you to. And that's where you go in and get the ballot that you want, or the ballot that is representative to you and your address. And if you went to any other voting location, you would have to vote provisionally because you would be voting on a ballot that was not matched to what you were supposed to be voting on. So when we did that, we would have anywhere between 140 and 160 polling precincts. We usually had them in about 92 buildings, and it would require us to hire approximately 1,200 people to staff those voting locations for the one day. With a vote center model, you reduce the number of locations, expand what can happen in those locations, and you expand the number of days. So we went from, like I said, 140, 160 down to 23. And our voting locations start opening for voting or replacement ballots or changing your registration or anything to that effect starting on February 5th, the day the ballots that are mailed. And we steadily increase the number of them. So we'll have 2 open starting on February 5th. Then starting February, looking at my calendar, 24th, we will open 3 more, so we'll have 5. Then on March 2nd, we will open 13 more, so there'll be 18. And then on Election Day, we will open 4 more to have a grand total of 22. Anybody in the county of Santa Cruz can go to any one of these locations during the time that they are open, and they can do any, they can turn in their ballot, they can get a replacement ballot, they can vote in person, they can receive language assistance if needed, they can change their voter registration, they can do any of that. It doesn't matter. So if I live in Santa Cruz, I'm working down in Watsonville, I can now walk into one of the ones down in Watsonville and I can get my ballot. So no longer provisional. From going this model, we cut our provisionals. So, I mean, if I get 5 provisional ballots in an election now, it's a weird day. Because now provisional is only truly if we can't figure out what's going on with this person. I mean, they're not registered, they're canceled, we just don't know. That's the only time we would ever do a provisional, and we would have to study it and do some more things. So, I mean, we went from, if I were to tell you some elections, 20,000 provisionals, that is the truth, down to like 5. Because now you can go anywhere and get exactly what you need. What else did it do for us? It took the number of people that we needed down. So again, 1,200, now we need about 300 people to do it. On one hand, for me, it's better because it's less people. I can invest more time in getting them trained appropriately for what they need to do. Actually, my retention rate is much better in having people come back every single election, which helps with the training process. But on another hand, it's kind of sad because for a while I used to be the polling or the election person, the precinct worker person. And although I may not know your name, I sure know you still, because I'd be like, see, like you, I know you. You worked for me at one point, right? And I can go around, and by the end of this time, I might remember what precinct you were at. But it was like I knew my 1,200 people. I knew what they did. I knew where they were. I knew how they interacted and stuff. And I feel sad that I no longer get to see them. So it's kind of a trade-off, but I think for providing access to the voters of Santa Cruz and providing access to the people who are not registered who wish to participate and become registered, this is a much better model for us. And people have their choice still. They can vote that ballot that's mailed to them, or they can come in person. For us, it doesn't matter. We still want to give you the option. We're just gonna give you more days to make that decision.
Given the confusion about who the Republican nominee is going to be for president, what does that ballot allow me to do? What does it have on there?
So,
how many choices do I have?
So, if you were a registered Republican, I know, but if you were, you would get a ballot that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 names on it.
Wow.
Because those 9 people went through the process of qualifying to be a qualified nominee on the ballot in California.
Does that include people who dropped out?
Yeah, because at the time, yeah, that's my favorite part. But at the time the certified list came out, which was actually December 28th, because that's when we started creating ballots and getting them ready, because our military and overseas ballots go out 60 days before the election, which was January 5th. So from December 28th, January 5th, we were actually making ballots in order to get that done. That was who was qualified. Yeah, I love it. When we send out the ballots, people send it back, and then another candidate drops out of the race, and then I get the panicked phone calls. Well, I want you to retrieve my ballot. Yeah, sorry. Your ballot looks no different than somebody else's ballot, so I can't retrieve it. So, anyway, yes, sir.
Yes, on February 5th, the ballots are made.
Mm-hmm.
Are you unlocking the mailbox where we can put?
Yes, at 8 a.m.
That day?
Yeah.
Okay, because that didn't happen the last time. Not in the mailbox was locked because it was on a weekend. And I couldn't vote that same day I got the ballot.
That's really odd, because Monday is 29 days before an election. It always is. So the ballot, we go around, we install them the weekend before that Monday.
This is the covered bridge part.
No, I know where you're talking. So either you got your mail really fast, because we actually enter them into the mail on the Saturday before the 29th day. So it can be.
It was a weekend day. And the
Well,
ballot box wasn't open.
it wasn't open because it wasn't 29 days.
And I tried to say that, but
Okay, so 29 days is when we open the ballot box,
okay.
which is a Monday. Always a Monday. It's-
Early weekend day to the box, because it would still be locked if I get the ballot
So,
early.
okay, so I'm gonna say this again. The law says that I open the drop boxes on the 29th day prior to the election. We mail the ballots the weekend before because they're to be in the mailboxes of people on the 29th day of the election. I can't open the box before the law allows me. So if the post office was fast and literally did the same day delivery, yay to them. But I can't open the box until that Monday by the law. But if you did receive it early, you always can come and drop it at our office because we would be open.
On a Saturday?
Yep. Oh, heavens. We work every day. You also could drop it in the mail, regular mail, because it is postage paid.
Okay, thank you.
I'm wondering, I signed up our AEW to be poll workers, and it said we're full and we'll get back to you, and that was months ago. So you have no turnover now, or are you not taking groups?
So the assignments went out yesterday to everyone via either email if they had the email, or by mail if we only didn't have. So the assignments were of who got assigned to locations. We expect after the assignments occur that we will start getting phone calls very rapidly of, well, my life has changed, I'm no longer available. Or sometimes we get the, I don't like that location. And occasionally we get the, I don't like that person. And so we have to make changes and pull people off of lists. So if you did not get your assignment either by email or by mail, well, you wouldn't get the mail unless it's the fast post office like he gets. You can always call and make sure that you are on a wait list.
I was just wondering, because it would be a whole group and it would take effort to rally the troops.
So typically we do not do an adopt a poll like we used to under the traditional polling place, because we would now need you to do it for a 4-day or 11-day cycle, where we could still end up putting individuals in various locations. I know we had to do that with another group that used to adopt a poll, and they have it amongst themselves that even though they don't all work together, that they still give their pay in for their fundraising.
And my other question is, suppose a candidate was in prison
You're asking me a question that I can't answer, and the reason that I can't is I don't qualify national or state candidates. The Secretary of State does that. If a local candidate were to have something occur like that, then I would have to go to council in order to get some guidance on that.
So after they've been printed.
Yeah. I know what to happen if somebody who's on the ballot dies, because that's very clearly written out, but there isn't anything written out. Well, depending on when it occurred in the process, what date it happened, how many days before the election, we either pull the ballots back and reprint and send them out, or we run a subsequent election. So that's the only thing that's spelled out specifically in the code, because I guess it's happened enough times that they decided to put it specific in the code.
Would that go for the presidential election also?
The Secretary of State would be the one that would make the full determinations, yes.
You mentioned write-ins before. Could you please explain how the write-in system works?
Sure. So, write-ins, in the primary election, write-in is a possibility for all contests, but a write-in candidate must go through the same process that a candidate did to get their name on the ballot in order to be qualified. So if there was a nomination requirement, like for example, if there was a write-in person who wanted to write in or run as a write-in candidate for supervisor, there's a requirement of having 25 good nomination signatures from people in that supervisorial district nominating them. A person would need to do that and get those and turn them in, and then they would become what's known as a qualified write-in. And we would tabulate any write-in votes for them specifically to that person's name, and it would be reported on our statement of vote. We tabulate people who are written in. You know, we see all sorts of things like, you know, your mom, you know, whatever. We look at those because we have to look at each one individually to make sure that they're not qualified. And then we just drop them into the write-in bucket. So you will see on reports that there are write-ins. Just know that they're not qualified, because if they were a qualified write-in, we would delineate their name with their totals. So if there's somebody was writing in for president, which I can tell you there's 12 people in that effort right now that are trying to do that, they're going out to get the requisite number of write-in or nomination signatures that are needed. They have until February 20th. So this is where write-ins is funky. They have till February 20th to get that done. Yes, that's after the ballots go out. We know this, but that's the way the law goes. And those names will be posted as soon as it gets done, and people can vote for anybody who's in a write-in. If they're president, it's again only if it's the party that you're with, and you know, all of that other stuff. I will tell you on the local level, we've had nobody come to get a write-in petition. So I don't anticipate seeing any write-ins on the local level. I would know if somebody was doing it in one of our Congress districts or our state Senate or state assemblies. That's nothing. So the only write-ins I see at this point that are going to happen, granted we still have a lot of time before the 20th of February, but I only see presidential write-ins occurring. And you know, people always go, I mean, I tell this all the time. I saw a write-in campaign occur. Evelyn, I think we were still downstairs, so I think you were still with us too. There was somebody running as a write-in candidate for city council for the city of Capitola. He only lost by 8 votes. Exactly. His name was not on a ballot. He had no opportunity to do a candidate statement because write-ins don't get a candidate statement. He did it entirely on word of mouth and stuff like that. 8 votes. We recounted that one. Just to make sure.
More than once.
More than once. Yeah. But it was 8 votes. So write-in campaigns can happen, but that candidate has to be extremely committed because they're at a major, you know, they don't get as much as their name's not here. So people have to really know about it. Mm-hmm.
So the ballot now has been finalized and approved by the Secretary of State. Is that right? Or
the list of candidates that are federal or statewide have been certified by the Secretary of State.
okay.
I lay out the ballot. We do all of the proofing and get it proofed on the local level.
So there can't be any 14th Amendment challenges now?
The certified list of candidates were provided to us on December 28th. That's what we built our ballots around.
Last I looked, there was only one ballot measure that qualified for the March.
election. Where are we up to currently?
So statewide, that is correct. There's only one proposition that will be on your ballot, and that's Proposition 1. And as much as I would like elections to not be political, the number of propositions on the state level was a political thing. There were actually 5 that had already qualified on the state level, but due to a legislative bill that was passed through, all of those were deferred to the November ballot, so only this one, which is actually a combination of 2 different ones, would appear on there. Which means that come November, you're looking at probably 15 or 16 state ones. Locally, we do have one county-wide measure. The city of Santa Cruz has 2 city measures, and the Happy Valley, Live Oak, and Pacific Elementary School districts have school district measures. So some of you, if you are in those districts, all of you will see Prop 1, and all of you will see Measure K, because that's the county-wide one. And then depending on where you are in registered, you may see more. Yeah, November's ballot is scary. I thought this was scary. I don't know. How many of you remember our mark-a-vote ones? The ones that were this big? Remember those? Right? And we would have cards A, B, C, D, E, F, sometimes G, H, I. You know, that was what Evelyn trained me on getting those prepared. When we left the mark-a-vote system in 2006, we moved to only having single cards. It's a dream. For us, it's a total dream to have a single card. And then June 2022 came, and we had 2 cards again. So we had enjoyed so many years of a single card, we got a little lazy. But that second card came, and that was why when I saw the list of what we were looking at with all of it, that's when I said, we need one column because we need one card. And boy, believe me, I'm already starting to play. It's kind of like playing, Jenga, where you move something and something else doesn't break. I'm already looking at how much space a typical measure takes up. And I'm already playing around with, because I know how many I'm going to see for president in a general, right? I know there's only 6 qualified parties. So I know I'm only going to see 6. I might see an independent candidate or 2, right? So I know how big that's going to be. I know that the top 2 are going to run off on all those voter nominated ones. So I know how big that's going to be. So I'm starting to, look into my crystal ball. How many people are going to run for a school board? How many are going to run for a water board? I kind of, so I make an average, and then I know about how much space a measure will take, and then it's also in the crystal ball. How many local measures do I think they're going to be? And I'm already starting to move them around on the piece of paper to make sure to see what's my tipping point. Where, how many more things can qualify at the state level before we will tip into the second card. So, yeah. Okay, I saw here, then I'm going to go here, then here.
Question on Mesa K for this area in the county. It's my understanding that the city also can vote on the county question. Is that correct?
That is correct. The entire county can vote on a county one.
Even though it only affects county areas.
That is correct. That is based. We got legal counsel on that, and that goes way back because the whole county voted on many things that were more in the unincorporated area, going back at least 40 years. So yeah.
Yes, could you explain about the difference between the races that have partisan after, you know what I'm saying, after the primary, which races have to have 2 people still standing and which don't?
Okay, sure. So what's known as a voter-nominated office, which would be U.S. Senate, Congress, State Senate, State Assembly, and then on this particular ballot, and then in the other, governor, lieutenant governor, all of the constitutional officers, those are all considered voter-nominated. So the top 2 vote getters move from the primary to the general. Even if there's only 2, and one person gets a vote, the top 2 vote getters move from the primary to the general, no matter what. In nonpartisan offices, such as the county offices, like sheriff, DA, county clerk, auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, assessor, recorder, judges are different. Those, and then your county supervisors, and now for the city of Santa Cruz, only the city of Santa Cruz, because they moved their elections from November to running in a primary and runoff if need be. Those are considered nonpartisan, which means 50% plus 1. If a candidate gets 50% plus 1 of the votes cast, they are elected and they don't run off in November. However, if they don't, then you will see the top 2 run off in November.
What about school board?
So school board is only in November. So the top vote getters are it.
So how is the order of the names of the candidates determined? Because it seems like the ones at the top have an advantage.
So that's a really great question, because we use our own alphabet. Right? We don't do anything like normal people. I'm telling you, we don't. So they're listed in alphabet order, but we do what's known as a random alphabet. So we draw, so all 26 letters are in a bucket, and we draw them out, and that's the order in which they are. So the first letter pulled out could be a Q. So Q's the first letter, and so on. And then we take it all the way across the name. So let's say somebody's last name is, we'll say Weber and Webster. So W, E, and B are all exactly the same. So now we're looking at, in the alphabet, is B before S? Because I'm a 2B Weber, that's why I say it that way. And if B is before S, Weber would be first, Webster would be second. But if S is before B, then Webster is first and Weber is second. Wow. And so, but then it's even better, because we rotate them. So as you switch assembly districts, you rotate their order. The top person goes to the bottom and everybody shifts up one. So like for U.S. Senate, we are, the order in Sacramento County is different than the order in Santa Cruz County, because every assembly district, it shifts. And we have 3 assembly districts in Santa Cruz, so our Senate order is in 3 different orders.
So what is the purpose?
The purpose is not to give preferential treatment to the top of the ballot or the bottom of the ballot. Yeah, so the A's are not always elected, or the Z's are not always elected, because there are people, I will tell you, that will, if they don't know, they'll either vote the top or the bottom. Yep. So that's why we create our own alphabet to make you search, and that's why we rotate them, so across the state it looks different.
Are we the only ones doing that? Other districts?
Other states?
Yes. Other states or other...
I don't know. I have a hard enough time keeping track of all of our laws, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I brought my code book only because after I leave here, I have to go someplace else and I need to work on it. This is what we have to go by in order to conduct elections. And you'll see it's not very big writing. And these change every year. And so this is why what I said we can never do it the same way twice. This is why. Constantly changing.
How did you get so interested in elections?
Well, I'll tell you. I followed a boy. After leaving college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I went to work for Yosemite National Park, great place. I'm sad I left it, but it was, a much different world there. And the park flooded. And so all of us lost our jobs, understandable. And a boy that I had dated many years before called me and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And so we went out to Sweet Tomatoes, which I don't know if any of you remember that. It was like hometown buffet. And then because I needed to go do something, he said, "Come to Santa Cruz." So I'm like, okay, right? What else am I going to do? And then his mother, who worked as extra help at the elections department since I don't even know when she started. She said, "You need a job." And I said, "Okay. Are you catching me?" The thing, so like, okay, whatever. And so she drugged me into the elections department, and I tried. I tried to leave. I did. I went back to school, got my teaching credential. I taught school, actually, for many years. But I kept being pulled back. And finally in 2006, my daughter was a year and a half old, and I had been helping extra help for a while in there. In 2006, I said to my husband, the boy I followed, I said, "You know what? Someone is going to die in this house. It's either going to be me or it's going to be our daughter, because the two of us are already butting heads, and I can't handle this. I must do something." And it was right at that time that the county, we were just the registrar of voters up to 2006. And then we had what was known as the Great Divorce in the county building, where Richard Bidal, who was the county clerk, recorder, registrar of voters, and tax collector, decided to retire. And nobody wanted to do all four of those things. Don't blame them. And so we had a divorce. And the assessor went with the recorder, the county clerk left the recorder and went with the registrar of voters, the tax collector combined with the treasurer, and they called me up and they said, we need help. Can you come back? And I went, yes. And that's when I started in there on a full-time basis and I just never left. I just love it. I'm still teaching, right? And I'm still going out and I'm still teaching. Evelyn asked me if she could bring over some of her friends so I can take them through the canvas, which we haven't even touched on. And I'm like, yeah, because I love it. You show up at my office, I'm going to spend as much time as you want walking you around and showing you and telling you everything, because I love what I do. And I love being able to help you guys know what I do. Because I truly believe that if you understand the process and you understand how it all interrelates, then that's going to make you want to be even more a part of the process. You all are part of the process, but you can even become more part of the process. You could be me. No, and I just really enjoy that. And when I taught high school, I taught kindergarten, and then I taught high school special ed. And I took my special ed kids to work in a polling place every single election. I would take them to our office and I would have them work there every single election, because they too can be a part of the process. And they are. Many of the kids that I had, which are now very grown adults, they call me, they've moved off to other jurisdictions, and they'll call me and they'll go, "I just worked at this county," or "I just did this." And I'm like, because there is something for all of us in this process. And so that's why I do it.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have you gone to the high schools and given the spiel throughout the county.
You know,
I'm really concerned about those 17-and-a-half-year-olds.
yeah, I'm concerned about them too. You know, getting into the high schools is very, very difficult. When I taught high school, it was a whole lot easier because they couldn't say no, right? It's like, oh, you're over at that school. Yeah, I'm coming in. We send out notices. So the state of California has voter registration months. The months of April and the months of September. And they're set up in conjunction with the the superintendent of public instruction and the Secretary of State in order to provide voter education for high school students. So we send out notices twice a year, several months in advance. We try to do it at the end of the previous year so we can get into their curriculum. And we only have 2 high schools out of the entire county that invite us in, one of which actually lets us go into the classrooms. The other one allows us to put up a table in their quad. And, you know, my daughter, who is now almost 20, she went to PCS, and she would be sitting there in her classes, and she'd be listening to the teachers teach, and she's like, yeah, that's not right. You know, no, that's not the way this happens. No, that's not what goes on. And even then, we could not get into PCS. So, you know, it is a strategic goal. The county now has us do strategic goals. And we've put in a strategic goal that by June 2025, we're going to be in 4 schools. And I know it sounds horrible, but that's double the amount we are now. And we're actually going to be in classrooms. And we're working hard to get to that. So, yeah, no, I agree with you.
Just to let you know, I was just talking with Ferris at the Martin Luther King Youth event that they had done, and he was interested. I gave him the flyers that you guys have on your website about the high schoolers volunteering for the voter election stuff, so I can definitely try and post it.
Thank you.
When I was a school librarian, I worked in high schools, and Contra Costa County had a system where I could get polling booths into the library. And I worked with all the U.S. history and poli-sci teachers.
Yes, so we do with Watsonville High School. We actually help them run their student body elections, where we do, the students do it themselves. We're just there to guide them, but we help them put together a candidate, if they want to do statements, what it is that we look for in statements and how we do that. We help them with their ballots, to do layout, and we provide them voting booths and assistance on how to do that.
Yeah, we actually did. I don't remember if they provided the ballot or I made up a ballot, but we actually did the actual election that was coming up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If I could just make a public service announcement. AUW has a new program called GovTrek where it takes high school girls and puts them on a team and they learn how to run a political campaign. And the nomination, the application for that is passed for this year, but if anybody wants to help nominate or recruit high school girls to do that next year, let me know. My business card on the table too. But they had Nancy Pelosi do the opening statement last year. It was all virtual. It's 6 weeks in a row on a Saturday morning. And in the end, this year they're saying that they have openings in congressional offices for interns for the girls who qualify and participate.
Excellent. Yeah, one of the things I would like to do, still keeping my teacher hat on, is because one of the things that I do feel, schools, unfortunately, there's been so many changes on what the state standards are and everything, something has to give. And the civics that I was taught in the civics classes back many years ago, where I was required, to pass a test to get out of 8th grade and pass a test to graduate from high school, specific for civics. That's not the way that civics is taught anymore. And so I have this long-term goal in my head that I want to write curriculum that is actually going from kindergarten through 12th grade, because really elections can be scaled that much. and what it would look like and what activities can be done and things like that. You know, I would really like to get that done because, and that would be taught, it doesn't have, I mean, it would be great if it was in the schools, but there was also a program that was down in Orange County about 15 or so years ago that was kind of like an election university, and it was very similar to that. And people would come in on Saturdays, like you were saying with that program, and they would take them all the way through the election. So it was, what is voter registration? How do we do voter registration? Why do we ask the questions we ask on voter registration? What happens when we get that voter registration card or record online? How do we put that in there? How do we match it up? How do we verify? Then taking it to the next step, what is it to be a candidate? How do we write candidate statements? How do I count words? Because that's another thing I do that's not the same as a normal person, right? People come to me with a statement and they'll say this one has exactly 200 words because that's what's required, or the maximum, because that's what my Microsoft Word said it was. And then I count it and it's 182 words. And they're like, well, no, it's 200. Well, you know, Santa Cruz County, that's not 3 words, that's 1 word. So, you know, teach how we, right, see? So I don't do anything like a normal person. You know, and take them through all of that. Have them write candidate statements. Then how do we lay out a ballot? As I told you, I'm moving stuff around on a piece of paper. Why do I put them in the order that I put them? Why is the alphabet the way the alphabet is? Why do we rotate? When do we rotate? You know, and then to the next thing is, you know, how do we run on election day? What does it look like? All of that. And then moving into the canvas. Because one of the biggest questions I get on the day following the election, right? March 6th, I will have at least 1,000 people say, well, why aren't they final? Why aren't you done? Right? Election day is over. The news has reported. Okay, but I'm still counting votes. But why? You should be done. And it's like, well, let me tell you why. You know, why don't you come in and see that yesterday at the drop boxes, at the voting locations and in the mail, I got in 60,000 envelopes. Those 60,000 envelopes have to be verified. They have to be opened. They have to be extracted. They have to be flattened. You know, and then what a lot of people don't know is following the election, we actually conduct the election again within our office as a canvas. We audit everything. Everything. How many pieces of paper did I actually issue? Do I have a way to account for all of those pieces of paper that I issued? Have they either been returned? Have they been spoiled or canceled? Or did the person choose not to vote? I go through and I look at every single signature and I verify, did Evelyn, voter, you know, here's Evelyn signing in, here's Evelyn's record, does it match that she voted on this day using this method? I don't know, obviously, what she voted, but she came in, she did that. Does it match? We do 1% manual tallies, which I will tell you right now is not 1%. It's closer to 20%, because we pull we have to do 1% of all ballots cast in all contests, but we don't just do a contest. When we pull a piece of paper, we manually tally the entire ballot on that one. So that's why we do close to 20% of the ballots that are cast, we will manually tally to verify that we're reading things right. I told you about write-ins earlier. We go back and we look at every single one of those write-ins again and make sure that we have attributed it where it's supposed to go. We look at those 5 provisionals. We look at our same-day voter registrations and get those all done. And then if a contest is close, we will escalate the manual tally. We have been known to manually tally a contest multiple times before we certify because we don't want the recount, but we've been through recounts too. So that's why it takes us 28 days, because we are actually conducting the entire election again, because we're not going to certify our results unless we know those results are going to stand up to any challenge. That would be the worst thing in the world. The worst thing in the world would be that we go into a recount and it's flipped.
So what are the new election laws that just passed that are in effect? I guess Gail got one passed statewide.
Gail got many passed statewide. Excuse me, I'm trying to reframe. Assemblymember Pellerin, because I testify in front of her, because she's the chair of the elections committee for the assembly, and I have to work really hard to call her assembly member or chair Pellerin. Because little known fact about Gail, she and I are actually from the same small town. We graduated from the same small high school. I mean, there's only 800 students in the high school. I used to pass her house every day. So, anyway, so she authored and passed several ones. One of them was a loophole that needed to be fixed when in November 2020, when we switched to issuing ballots by mail to all active registered voters. It got rid of somebody asking for a replacement ballot or a second ballot over the phone after we verified who they were, or through a web application after we verified who they were, and they could only do it by giving a handwritten note with their signature. So she got that back in, so we can now take replacement requests in other methods. As far as items at a voting location, Santa Cruz already did this, but now the whole state has to have signature guides. So somebody who has a vision impairment would be able to lay that down and sign within that. Also magnifying glasses, which I think, right. Again, sorry. And that there's either people outside or signs outside to allow for curbside voting. Another thing that was done was to codify voting your vote by mail ballot. I don't know how to put it in a better way. If you were mailed this ballot, it would come to you actually folded, right? Because it's in an envelope. And if you wanted to not vote this one, you wanted to vote in person, I would say to you, you need to give me back this ballot, even though you've already filled it out. And I'm going to give you an identical ballot, except the only difference is it's flat, not folded. We all had a very hard time with that, because you want to talk about a waste of resources, right? If you voted it. So the law didn't specifically say you couldn't, but now it specifically allows you to, right? So we, in the last several elections, just turned you from a vote by mail voter into an in-person voter and canceled your envelope. So if your envelope came back, then we would know something was janky, and then we would note that we were going to see a folded ballot in the ballot box. Now people have to allow that. So if somebody comes in, if somebody comes in to vote in person and they want to turn in their vote by mail ballot that they filled out at home, we now will put that into the ballot box. And let me see, I'm counting. The last one was AB 969, which is the one specific about voting systems that states and that was done with urgency legislation, so it actually went into effect last October. The ones I just described all went into effect on January 1st. That one is saying that the Board of Supervisors cannot cancel a voting system's contract. Now, a voting system is the system that not only tabulates your ballot, but also provides your accessible ballot for use for people to vote privately and independently. It also is the system that helps you lay out the ballots in order to get them ready to go. So and it also is your remote access vote by mail system, which is primarily used by military and overseas voters. They can't cancel that contract unless they have a new contract in place and a transition plan to transition from the old system to the new system. And additionally, it talks about when you can hand count and when you can't hand count. And that is not your manual tally as part of your canvas. That's a completely different system. It would mean that you would not be running your ballots through a tabulating system. You would solely be doing your only count by hand, and it tells you when you can and can't do that. She might have had one more, but those are the only 4 I can remember with elections.
We've been going through that, her accomplishments, there are many. I had a question about the high schools. You had mentioned there are 2 high schools in the county that would allow you to come into the classroom, but you didn't say what those high schools were, so I'm curious. I'm a former high school teacher too.
So Watsonville High is very, very good about letting us in. Santa Cruz High allows us in many times, but not consistently. And Scotts Valley High is the one that lets us put up a booth outside.
I got asked at least 2, I think.
No.
So I have another question on safety of poll workers and how the county is handling it.
So it's really weird that it's a fine line on what you have to do, because by law we're not allowed to have uniformed personnel at the voting locations or within a certain amount, within a certain amount of space before them. So we've increased our drive-bys. I'll start with that. That we've increased the awareness of our emergency personnel of where we are and where we're going to be. During training, we talk about it. We're actually bringing in to this round of training some de-escalation techniques, and then with this, and then we have more people at the locations because we have to, because of the model we have. And so people, it never goes down to just being 3 people there. So there's a more of a number. Also with the smaller number of locations, we can have our personnel, either rovers or our office, going around and being at the locations a lot more in order to assist with that. And so that's, and then within our office, dealing with the mail, we have all been through our training on how to properly open mail, what to do if there's something that comes in the mail that doesn't look good, and things like that.
A few years ago, I guess your office did a lot of outreach at the high schools where we would go and help the students register to vote.
Yep.
Are we planning anything like that?
Well, we've been trying to get back to that. That was pre-COVID.
Right.
And things have been a little slow on getting back. Our outreach out in the community as a whole has not even gotten back to half of what we were doing, because there's just not the activities that we had available before to be able to go to. So we're trying to get back into that.
Great.
Yeah, it is. And one of the things I forgot to talk about was our vote mobile. Our vote mobile will start to go out fully scheduled on the 8th. We want to wait for the mail to reach as many people as possible before we go out, because otherwise the first few stops are always to provide replacement ballots before the ballot has even reached. And then people are like, well, why'd you mail me one? Well, we mailed you one because we had to, and you asked for another one before the mail got to you, except again for this guy who's got fast mail. So our vote mobile is prepped to go out starting on the 5th of January. We'll be fully going out on the 8th of February. On the 8th of February, it'll be fully ready to go out. We go to at least 2 locations every single day. Sometimes we go to 3. Our time and we will post our schedule on our website. And again, the vote mobile is like any other voting location. Anyone can go to it and obtain the ballot that they need, get a replacement ballot, register to vote, etc. And we take that out to we work first. Sounds like we're preferential, but we try to get as many of our senior living communities on there so we can get access to them. We go to both hospitals multiple times in order. Mainly the first go round that we go is to help the hospital personnel, to help them do their things. The second go round is much closer to election day, where we would actually be able to help patients who are then in the hospital that would not be home or have not voted. We work with the hospitals in order to do patient outreach as well. Our vote-mobile does not go over to our jail facilities. However, we do outreach in our jail facilities in order to help there and provide access to the ballot as well. That includes all of the facilities, and then otherwise we love farmers market. We love farmers market because there's lots of really good things at farmers market. So we try to hit at least every farmers market in the county we go to at least 3 times. And then we just have other places that call us, like the tannery. They call us and they're like, we would like to see you. And we're like, okay, well, we've got this date. And if there's festivals or something, we try to go to those too.
Do you do homeless outreach at all?
We do go over to the Coral Street campus and work with them. We also work with Housing Matters on other things, and also the place on SoCal. I'm forgetting the facility name, but we work with them. They're not homeless, but that's a locked facility, and we work with them as well.
About the colleges we have here, Cabrillo and...
So Cabrillo has never really been receptive to us putting the vote-mobile there. However, we do staff tables in the quad area for both campuses multiple times a year. We also have a drop box for the vote by mails in parking lot R of Cabrillo. UCSC, we have not only a drop box, but we do a 4-day voting location up at Stevenson. And then we are able to pull the vote mobile up into their quad. We're actually able to pull it in there, and we do that as well.
When does training actually start? I haven't even gotten my email yet. Although Salvador told me where I'm working and what days I'm working, but...
The first day of training is the 7th. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 choices.
Okay. I need that many. My calendar is already full, filling up for Christmas.
Mine is too. After I leave here, I get to drive down to my little sister's turning 50. So that gives you some idea on me. All right. Well, thank you. So the last thing, and I may have already said it, but I forgot because we were just talking so much that I don't remember what I said. Our office is open to observers at any time. Anytime we are working, you are welcome to come. That includes Saturdays and Sundays. We would have, if the building itself is locked but we are working, we post numbers on the front door for people to call us. You would just need to come in, say you're here to observe. We assign you a badge. You'll be assigned a tour guide who will take you around and show you the different activities that are happening in the office on that particular day. They will alert you to the orange markings on the floor, which are kind of where you have to stop, because although our office does many things, there are several things such as the issuing of the marriage licenses, the passports and stuff that our clerk services do that are not observable because of the information that's there, but the election stuff, and it'll tell you where to go and who to ask questions of when you're there observing. So you are all welcome to come and see us at any time. Of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.